welcome to another edition of KISS.
Keep it simple, sister.
Hi, Diana.
Hi, Samantha.
Hello,
How are you?
everybody. So a reminder to everyone, first, welcome to 2024.
Yes,
Yes, this is happening
already.
in 2024, unless you're listening to this a year later in 2025. Woo, could
Woo,
happen.
woo. Okay, well, and I saw your post on Facebook, and you said that the last day is going to be 1, 2, 3, 3. What is it?
3, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What?
I don't know.
12, 31,
23.
23.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the last day of the year. Everybody, we had to work through that one. I love that.
I was like, oh, yeah, it is. And then I didn't really think it through. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how
Back to business.
We're back to business. Okay. So the KISS podcast, to remind anybody new that this is all about feeling great by feeling better, which means that Diana and I are sharing our tips, tricks, and techniques to help you just integrate these small little bits and pieces that make your life in whole become something that is more manageable, gives you more resilience, makes life more of ease. And gosh darn it, we like teaching people this.
Gosh darn it, we do. And we were just talking, that comes from SNL from a long time ago.
Yes. Yes.
And Samantha and I speak the same language. And we were just talking about how we did smiles, everyone, and we understood each other.
Yes.
And how people in my household would not have understood that. But
sadly not.
Those of you that are
80?
Our contemporaries out there know that that was from Ricardo Montalban and Fantasy Island.
Smiles, everyone.
Welcome to Fantasy Island. Wouldn't it be fun if we lived in Fantasy Island? But no, we don't. But our island is always good eventually because everything's always working out.
I love that. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
should the flip side?
Yeah, we're going to start with the flip side. And for those of you that are new or even old or old and new, our flips
are newly old. Let's just
whatever. The flip side is where we tell a little story about something in our lives that seemed to be a little bit contrasty or difficult or presented some sort of a challenge and how we looked at it or perceived it or tried to figure out why it was happening for us instead of to us. And
I like that.
Yes. And you know that there's a positive side of everything. You just have to be on the lookout for it. And sometimes you have to remind yourself, this is not as bad as I think it is at the moment, because it's going to be okay eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And we say hindsight is 2020, but we want to make this foresight, not hindsight. So in the moment, try and slow yourself down and figure out how to look at this in a slightly more positive way.
Mm-hmm. I always talk about like moving yourself into neutral first, because then you've slowed the roll of whatever the stress, the tension is. So you move yourself into neutral, and then it's easier to go, well, how is this benefiting? Or to sit there and look at the situation and just go, well, isn't this curious?
Yeah.
Like if you can just learn a few phrases like that, how is this going to benefit me? But I think looking at it like, well, this is weird. What's going on here? And turn it to curiosity.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is interesting.
I don't want this in my world. What's going on here?
This is, and it's hard to get there sometimes, but it becomes muscle memory. It becomes something that becomes a habit for you. And that's kind of where we are, and hoping sharing these little bits and pieces and stories will help other people see how they can use that in their own lives too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sounds good.
Yes. Do you want to start with yours, or you want me to start with mine?
I'll go.
Okay.
I'm up for
it. Good.
So for me, the other night, my son's been getting into a habit of staying up late not calling him out, just observing. He lives at home with us. He's just graduated from college, figuring out what his next step is. And so he, for whatever reason, has gotten into a habit of every so often cooking dinner late at night, after midnight, sometimes
Wow.
even later, because he's online playing with friends, and then it's time to take a break, and whatever it is, I don't know. So he made a lot of noise the other night when he was cooking, a lot of noise, and I get up the next morning and I go to walk into the kitchen, and I've got shoes on, and I hear this crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, what the hell? And I look down and there's rice grains everywhere, everywhere. Like I step back into the living room. They're actually in the living room, like
Oh, wow.
the entry to the kitchen. And I remember looking at them because I hadn't quite got it in my head that they're rice grains. And I'm like, then the cat tree is right next to the door there. So I'm thinking, did the cats just really scratch up and, the carpeting stuff on the, cat post? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that would be an awful lot of little fluffies. And so I reached down and nope, it's dry grains of rice, all over. So I go into the kitchen and it's like, it's like an explosion. um, Obviously, he was in there, and had a fit with the rice. I don't know what at this point. And he had cooked food, but didn't clean up any of the countertops. So there's greasy stuff everywhere. He did manage to put all of his dishes in the sink. He did do that, but he didn't wipe down anything down or. So anyway, I'm just like, I could have gone 0 to 100 so easily, and most people would have, and they would have gone up and dragged the kid out of bed and screamed and shout, but, to what end? And
Right.
obviously, if all of that's down there, there's a story. So I'm kinda going, "I can't wait to hear this story. I really can't wait to hear this story. I am going to reserve being pissed. I can always be pissed. Right now, I'm gonna just look at this like, "What the hell?" and leave it at that." So then a little while later, my husband, Rob, walks in to the kitchen, and I could hear him, and I didn't say anything, and then he comes into my office, and he's like, "What the hell happened in the kitchen?" It's a what the hell morning, and, I'm just like, "I don't know," and he's like, "What was Brody doing?" And I'm like, "Cooking dinner, I don't know," and I could see he wants to rev up, and I'm just stepping back from it. Well, wait till he wakes up. Because, I'm just gonna keep traipsing in and out. It's gonna be his mess to clean up. I don't care where the rice grains go. They're dry. I mean,
Yeah.
it hasn't even been cooked.
Yeah.
So I'm just staying as chill as possible. And he finally wakes up and I said, we got to sit down and talk. And he's like, okay, like he knows it's coming because he sees how bad it looks. And
It's surprising that he didn't see how bad it looked the night before, though.
I think he probably had a little bit to drink.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll do it.
Yes.
Okay.
And he also, can adopt an attitude of like he just can't handle it, like what the hell, and just walk
Yeah.
away. So again, it was the what the hell kind of experience, a lot
Yeah.
of that going around. So um, you know, again, I could have exploded on him. I could have said all kinds of things, but what would that have done to me, my body, revving myself up like that? And so, I just said, can you explain what happened here? And he did. And he very calmly explained it. And,
Uh-huh.
just as I had assumed, he explained how he picked up the rice bag was not clipped, how he picked it up, the rice fell everywhere. I'm like, how did you get it on the countertop and on the floor outside of the kitchen? He just goes, well, I grabbed it and I turned around and it sort of whipped all around. And I'm like, oh, and he said,
He
yeah. And
made
I was
his
just,
own rice tornado.
yeah, exactly. He was like, because I just thought maybe he took the bag, went, bloom, bloom, bloom,
Yeah.
and he's like, I was hungry, I was tired, I just need it to be done. I slipped down the stairs, like he has a little anyway. And that did wake me up. I did hear that. So anyway, it was a lot. Um, but it was nice because this had been a pattern of him doing this. I just said, of him cooking dinner late at night and this, I said, this is the straw, that breaks the camel.
Yeah.
This is the defining moment. And I'm like, 2024 is coming. It's time to get your shit together. Let's reevaluate what's going on here. And so for me, I could have gone all kinds of explosions, but instead staying calm, being able to have the conversation with him, and then being able to say, this is a defining moment. It's time that things switch. Because if I had yelled at him, he would have been in defense mode and just been like, whoa,
And not heard anything that you were saying.
Exactly. And by being calm, he was like able to be open and honest and say, yeah, this was a little over the top and I need to get it together. And yes, I've been feeling this way. I just hadn't reined myself in. And so it was actually a super positive experience, just a temporary, 12 hours of a kitchen that was,
A mess.
oh my God. And it's funny because the night before I had cleaned up the kitchen and I mean, spotless, like the sinks and everything, because
Uh-huh.
I've joked with my cousin and sisters and stuff that there's nothing sexier, honestly. You can give me a bronzed, oily looking muscled man. That's not as sexy as a clean kitchen with a clean sink. I mean, that is the biggest turn on.
Yeah.
And as I'm cleaning all of it, I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this because it's going to be totaled. I don't know why I thought that because
Yeah.
he's usually really good
Premonition.
about cleaning up. Yeah. It was that nudge of just know you're preparing this for the slaughter kind of thing. And yeah, so that was my experience.
Okay.
Yep. Your
Interesting.
your turn to flip it.
Well, I woke up happy go lucky yesterday and then got a message from Samantha and it said, "Hey, can you talk?" And I was like, "Sure, I can talk."
Me,
What's
Samantha.
on? You, Samantha. So Samantha was my flip side yesterday.
Okay.
How about it?
Uh,
Um, and I just have getting ready for the Christmas holidays. We put up our tree and I didn't put one ornament on it. None. And I kept sitting there thinking, I don't feel like putting the ornaments on there. It would be fun if everybody got together and we played the Christmas carols and we put the ornaments on and whatever. Um, and so when Samantha started telling me her stories, and it included rice, and some other things, and she just was having a morning, and I wasn't yet having any kind of a day yet. I was like, okay, well, I can sit and I can listen, and hopefully my listening will make her feel a little bit better or
always
whatever,
does. Yeah.
or I can put the ornaments on the tree as I'm listening to her. Um, and that was just my flip side because like it seriously for like 2 weeks, I hadn't done anything. Christmas is coming. And so by the time I finished our conversation, I had at least the front of the tree look like Taylor Swift, and the back of the tree looked like Dog the Bounty Hunter. I put a few of the ugly ornaments on the back, but it made my day so much better knowing that at least part of the tree was decorated. I mean, that's kind of a silly, stupid flip side. But every time I looked at it, I kind of looked down on myself like, look, lady, get your stuff together. This tree is just pitiful.
Yeah. You're down
But
talking yourself.
now it's not pitiful anymore. And I'm happy. And then by the time we finished our conversation, you said, I feel a little bit better. And I was like, okay, cool.
And you were like, I've got my tree decorated. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
because you were cussing up a little storm there. Like the ornaments kept falling and you were just like, rah, 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 rah.
Well, and one of the reasons why I didn't decorate it is because I tried to put you know how there's a star on the tree or the angel on the top of the tree or whatever? I had tried like 6 different times to put this. We have an angel that is Minnie Mouse. It's really cute. She's like a little Minnie Mouse caroler person. And I tried to put that up there, like on the little ladder, and almost fell off the ladder and then got it up and thought, this is great. And it's falling down. And then I got a Santa Claus one and tried to put that up there because I was like, maybe it's the way the thing is. And I just kept giving up.
It was
But I
sad.
felt so much better. I know. Yes, it was
Okay.
sad.
So next year, we'll make a pact that we will decorate our trees together. We'll have Zoom open so we
Oh,
see
that'll
each
be
other,
fun.
have a little bit of alcohol involved, and merry. I think this is why people are so relieved when their kids have grandchildren. I mean,
Yeah.
have kids, because maybe not grandchildren, but when they have their own kids,
Yes.
because it brings that sense of wonder back in. Like, this is a
Yeah,
part
and
of
it's
our
hard with these
lives.
adult children. Like it just doesn't matter like it used to. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
and I have neighbors across the street that have young kids, and it's just fun. Like Santa Claus came through our neighborhood with the fire trucks and stuff last night, and I saw them out standing in the driveway just watching, and I just the wonder on their faces was so cool.
Okay, so I'm a total sap. They came through the week before in our neighborhood, and it's
Uh-huh.
literally just driving by, and I'm standing in my doorway. But if they're going to do that, I'm going to go out and wave to them.
Yeah.
So I'm waving to them, and all of a sudden, like, my throat catches, and I'm about to be in tears because I'm just empathy, silly. I don't know what it is, but I just get like, if I go to a parade, I can feel all the emotions around me and get all just like the humanity. Oh my God,
Oh, that's
I get
cool.
so verklempt about those things. I don't know.
For
Just
Clint.
verklempt, verklempt.
All right. So that is the flip side for today.
Wrap up the flip side. That was really good though.
Yeah, because I didn't know that I had one, but that flipped me yesterday. And thank you for your part in that.
Thank you. And I didn't know I was going to be a part of the flip side. So it's good that I was like on a positive note of it. I was like going,
Yes, definitely.
interesting. Yeah, sometimes we just don't know about these things.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to get on to the positive path, which is our main topic. So
Yes.
our main topic for this time is called Know Yourself, or it could be Know Thyself. That sounds very intense. Know thyself.
Well, and also kind of it's a throwback to medieval times or
Uh-huh. Know
something.
Um, so what this about, what this about, I'm having trouble speaking today. What we're going to talk about is values, something
Yes.
we've danced around, but we've not really ever stopped and addressed. So
Yes.
when we talk about values, we're talking about, okay, the technical aspect of it is your principles and standards of behavior.
Right.
That's your values.
Right.
Um, And so Diana and I were talking before we started, like, how do we want to present this? What all do we want people to understand? And we know that we'll get into the topic and totally riff. So
Yeah.
we don't plan out everything we want to say.
Right.
But I know that I wanted to say this, that with value and concerns with values is that when there's a conflict between what society's expectations, standards, what society's morals are, when those are in conflict with what our personal values are, that's where the rub is. That's where we start to feel smothered, invisible, put down, all kinds of icky, dissociative feelings, and so forth.
Emotions. Yeah.
And what's interesting is that a lot of people just feel put down, invisible, ignored, unvalidated. They feel all those things, but they don't understand why. And it's because they've never really actually looked at what their values are to
Yeah.
determine, okay, these have an importance, and to then structure their life so they're living in accordance with their values.
Well, and I think that where our values come from is as children, we grow up and our parents teach us their values. They don't, and their parents taught them their values. And all of that is societal norm kind of thing.
Mhm.
But it might not down deep be what was really important to them or what's really important to us. And so that's where that conflict comes in, and we just, like you said, feel icky. We just feel off about it
Mhm.
because we're not able to concentrate our life around what our values truly are because we're so busy trying to fit into what society expects of us and
Yep.
what we think society expects of us. Society doesn't care.
Well, there is the
Most people.
phrase, "Go along to get along."
Yeah.
And, like, even saying that just makes me feel like, ugh, like, I just, it just sucks the very life force out of you.
Yeah.
Um, it's weird because think about it, when you're a kid, you want to be special. You want to be so individual, you want to be special, and yet at some point, you just want to blend. And
Oh, I
even when you're
think it's middle school. Middle school is when that happens.
and even when you're trying to be different and noticed, you still want to be with a group of people who are
That
being.
are like you.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it's very scary for us to sit there and say, "No, this is very important to me." And if you're in a really good school, and hopefully have a really good teacher, that teacher is like, "You've got this special spark in you. Go for this." Maybe it's arts, maybe it's dancing, who knows what it is. But they see that thing and they encourage you to step out to what is most interesting to you. And right now we're talking about interests, but that's part of that
But
process
your
of
interest is where your values lie. I
yes.
mean, that's what your values lead you to what makes you happy, what gives you joy.
Mhm.
But in so many instances, I'm just thinking about teachers that taught with me.
Mhm.
Um, what gave them joy was to control their atmosphere and not let anything that doesn't, fall in with the way they think things should go. And so for me, I was always the teacher that talked about the gift of ADHD, the gift of and it really is a gift because but it does not fit societal norms for school.
Mhm.
And historically, kids have been squelched, like they've been pushed down to fit in with what makes it easy. And schools were designed for factories, for, to work on an assembly line
Mhm.
or to listen and, to read and be able to do all those things. Unless, unless you're lucky enough to go to a school that allowed you to pursue your interests.
Yeah.
And I
Oh
had a
god, there's
little
a
girl in
lot
my
more of those. Yeah.
yeah, I had a girl in my class who was on the autism spectrum. She had Asperger's and loved her, loved her, loved her. My favorite. Um, very quirky, very, it was hard for her socially to interact with other kids or whatever. And luckily, she didn't want to get up in the morning. She didn't want to come in on time. She didn't follow the rules of school. And her mom was trying really hard to get her to follow the rules of school, but it was just awful for them. And so she was able to find this school. She called it the Hippy Dippy School. And this school, the way it was set up was so fantastic. Like the kids just had to put in their 5 hours of school, and that could have been 10 a.m. to however, 3 p.m., or it could have been 12 to 5, or it could have been, like whatever felt right for them. They went to school and they had things that they could choose from for the day. Well, I want to do this or I want to do that. And it was perfect for this young lady. And she was so successful because she was able to pursue the things that she was good at and interested in. And had she not gone to the hippy dippy school, I'm
Mm.
not really sure that she would be as successful today as she is, because she found what her value was. She found what her love was, and her mom let her do that, and her mom helped her. through that process. And she was lucky. I mean, they were both just very lucky to have each other,
Well,
I think.
think about it. Like a lot of parents, we want our kids, we want them to get good grades. We want them to have an interest in two sports, one musical instrument.
But all of
Um,
that is to get into college or whatever. Well,
well,
college is not it for every kid.
exactly. But think about if instead we focused on, well, what are your values as a middle schooler, as a primary school kid? Like, what are your values? And they're going to probably say, well, imagination, play, freedom of expression, you know, it,
And for
it,
some kids, it's nature. For some kids, it is sports for some kids. It is music for some kids. It is art for some kids.
mhm,
But trying to put everybody in that same mold
yeah.
is just not fair.
So if you could take the time to start getting them to understand and identify what their values are, like, because I'm just thinking, how different if you knew what your child's values are, and they're ever changing, because at that point you're exploring your life
Figuring
and
it
stuff.
out. Yeah.
But then you shift your parenting towards their values. Well, if you value, say, freedom, you know, freedom of to do what you want when you want. Okay, well, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. So then you have the freedom to do whatever you want. But
Right.
these are responsibilities that need to fit within, because then you're not going against the grain of what is really a core value to them. Instead, you're going into you're well, you are manipulating is what you're doing. You're utilizing what
And
is.
you have the power at that point as
Yes.
a parent, and they don't. And that's where a lot of the headbutting comes in, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And so instead of just like shoving it down their throat, instead, finding a way to have what your needs as part of the family's contribution or whatever is, having that flow along with their value instead
Yeah.
of force it, smother it down. What a different place that would be. Like how would that make a child feel validated?
Right. And as an adult, so many of our hangups and our problems that we have are from childhood when we weren't validated.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. It's okay. So I brought up core values. So when we talk about your core values, like we value a lot of different things. But your core values are those few values that are your absolute compass. They're the lines that you don't cross. They're the things that,
They're your hard stop, your
yeah,
line in the sand.
like for me, okay, I've got my little list here.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I've done this a number of times, and your values they will slightly shift a little bit, but they all
Uh-huh.
still pretty much stay in accordance, if you do it like once a year to
Uh-huh.
determine, like really look at what your values are. So my number one value is freedom. Freedom is, and that's such a broad range, but I would rather not have money but have freedom. I
Uh-huh.
would, like it's weird, just that sense of freedom is so important to me. So that's partly why I do the work that I do, because I am constantly trying to discover how, even in the most oppressive situations, how can I still experience freedom? And what
Uh-huh.
are the different mechanisms that allow me to feel free, even if I don't have this or I can't have that? So that's part of what galvanizes me forward, encourages me to explore all these different concepts and share it with other people, because that's a core value. The other ones, well, I'm going to name just a couple others. Spirituality. I've never been able to walk away from it. It has to be a part of my life. It's one of those. I own it.
Yeah.
Ease is another one, and so is wisdom. And when I say wisdom, it's the idea of continuing education, growth,
That's one of
um,
mine too. A
experiences.
very strong one for me. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't. If I suddenly couldn't learn anything else, like was just, I think I would just wither and just you know, if I've got to
Yeah.
go to the library to listen to someone talk so I get more information into my, field of experience, I'm going to go do that. That's going to be a priority.
Right, right. And so when we were getting ready to, same thing for me, when we were getting ready to retire and thinking about where we were going to go,
Mhm.
what appealed to me was a college town so that I could continue to go and learn new things because, they have people come and speak, or like you said, the library. So we ended up in York, Pennsylvania, which York College is in York. I mean, it's very easy to find a college town. They're everywhere. Um, but I remember when my older daughter went to Bridgewater College in Virginia, and the whole town of Bridgewater is the college. That's pretty much it. And I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool to live here and be able to go? Because I think it was a liberal arts college, and they had every month they had speakers come and talk about different things, and that was part of their curriculum. That was part of their
Oh, I love that.
graduation requirements, was to go to these different things. And when she would tell us the things that she would go to, I was like, that would be cool. I would love to just be the old lady that lives down the street and walk in and sit in the back of the room and listen to that, whatever presenter was presenting. So I thought that was kind of cool. So how did you find those values? Like, I know the answer to this, but I want you.
Well, so
And it's going to be our weekly wanderlust is going to lead us to how everyone can do this. But if you describe, like, what was the process of for you to figure that out?
well, okay, so there's a lot of psychological tests out there
Uh-huh.
that help you determine, like I think a lot of people have taken what's the MMPI or something. It's the one where you you figure out like they had done a survey over all these people who said they were happy with their jobs, and they
Uh-huh.
came up with all these list of qualities, and so then you fill out this thing about all the qualities that you love about life and work and the things that interest you, and then they pair up what jobs would be the best jobs for you.
Right. I think they give that to kids in high school
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's the MMPI, but I'm not sure, or it's an aspect of it because I think that's a huge test. So anyway, this is another test that's like that they've come up with to determine values, what's considered a value, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we introduce the weekly wanderlust.
Yeah.
But it is a process of pitting one value against another, so that
And which one
you,
is more important to you?
yeah, because the thing is, you don't really know. Like, okay, right
Well, and
now,
the reason why I'm asking that is because if I'm a person sitting listening to this, like, did she pull those values out of her butt? Like, where did those come from?
so if you're, yeah, if you were sitting here listening, you could just go, okay, right now, what's the most important thing to me? And you might go, peace and quiet. Peace. Okay, so peace
Uh-huh.
is really important. But then later on in the day, you might find that you're really enjoying being out and around people and all the activity going on. So is it like, was that really in the moment that that was important? Is it an
Or is this an
overriding thing?
overall thing that's always important to me?
Yeah. And so understanding what your core values are that's the key thing.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that, come hell or high water, they have to be honored. And so when you are out and about in society doing your thing, maybe it's at work or wherever, and you keep ignoring this core value, you're going to end up becoming, that's when you feel tired. That's when you start feeling anxious, irritable, anxiety ridden, just more prone
Off.
to illness. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
you're constantly hitting against something that just doesn't fit. Oh, I remember, here's a good example. Um, so when I was a single parent with my daughter Tessa, and I had moved back to the island, and I'd put her in daycare, and her daycare was literally across the street from where I worked. And, she was at that age, 3 years old, 3 to 4, where kids are always getting sick, and so,
Yeah.
and I'm working for an appraiser, and I'm like his assistant. And there's one other office person that comes in every so often. So if I'm not there, stuff doesn't go out the door. And here she's getting sick, and I got to bring her to the doctor. And um, this happened like 3 times in 1 month.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the third time that I'm going to take her to the doctor, my boss comes to me and he goes, "You know what? I need you here. Isn't there, can your mother," like I was living with my mom at the time. He's like, "Can your mother not take her to the doctor? Someone else needs to take her to." He's a father. He has a child the same age as my child. His
Yeah.
wife lives at, works from home. And he's sitting there telling me, "Isn't there someone else that can take your child to the doctor?" And I looked at him and like so much stress. He goes, "If this keeps up, I'm going to have to let you go." And I'm sitting there going, "My job or my child?" I'm a
Right.
single parent. Like I'm freaking out. And I just look at him and I'm like, "I have to go." And I go and pick up my daughter. I get her to the doctor, get the meds for her that I can't even afford anyway because I'm a single parent. I bring her back to the house, put her to bed. I go into the kitchen and my mom's in the kitchen and I just have a complete meltdown. I mean, I was like in tears going, because the pressure of it, I said, "I am a mom first. My child is absolutely, she is 3 years old." I think she was 3 years old at the time. Like I am the primary caregiver. I have to be able to take her to the doctor. I can't. How do people function? How do they manage? Like I just went off the deep end because my value at the time, which it's still important, but it's eased up because my kids are grown. But at
Right.
the time, my value was to be the kind of parent that was there for their child, to be
Right.
the one to, help them when they had the sniffles and make them feel better. And that was absolutely a core value. Like it was overriding of everything. And that was putting me in such incredible conflict that it just like, so yes, it would have been better to find a job that like I ended up having a talk with him, my employer, and we were able to work some, like, okay, I'll sign out. You don't pay me during that time, whatever. And that was okay. I was willing to trade not having the money in order to be, doing what was a core value of mine. And that
Right.
eased the tension. So that's an example of, that kind of alignment.
Yeah. I
Super.
get it. I get it. And one of my core values, and I wish I had grabbed all of them, but I know that
Mm.
family and being a good mother has always been one of my core values. So I totally get what you're talking about there, but there are people that their core value is that they are hard workers.
Yep.
Their and work is everything for them.
Yeah.
And
Wealth.
so
Wealth.
wealth, exactly. Exactly. And then I thought that the evaluation, I can't remember what the name of the test is,
Mhm.
was very interesting because it said, do you value this or this? Which one is more important to you, this or this? And sometimes it was really, they were kind of close. Like you were kind of
You have
like,
to really read the
I
little
have to think
definition.
about that. Which one do I value more? But then when you put them all together, you get these core values.
Yeah. And it's so, like we think we know what we value, but it's a blend, when you're just thinking about it, when you just throw it out there, it's kind of you've gotten pressed into doing certain things. And so you think that's your value, but it's that you've been pressed into doing it. I got to work these
Yeah.
long hours. I've got to provide this. I've got to do, and and so you don't really understand what that rub is until you do this whole thing where you're comparing and going back and forth. And then once you know what that core value is, all of a sudden you're going, okay, now that I know, okay, awareness is the first step, but
Right.
then you've got to integrate it because awareness, it's kind of like shelf help, when you get books that are not, they're self-help books, but you put them, okay, I've got this book. I'm going to put it on the shelf now. That means that I've acknowledged I'm aware, but you still have to integrate the concepts.
Yeah.
And so once you integrate the core values into your life, you start making decisions that are in alignment and they begin to give you that freedom, that sense of ease. It's not easy at first
Right.
because some people say you're selfish. Some people will say, how dare you do this because you're not going along with what my core value is.
Right.
I
Right. And
want
and a lot of that comes from our parents.
Mhm.
Their core values may not be the same thing that ours are, and they want to be happy because we are going along with what their core value is.
And it makes their life easier.
Right.
Well, my mom always says to my kids, well, why aren't you doing this? And why don't you do a job like this? And they get so frustrated with her. And I'm like, it's because she feels like she wouldn't have to worry about you anymore. If you were doing something mainstream that she gets that doesn't leave you open to a lot of uncertainty,
Yeah.
even though what they're
Well,
doing,
and one of her core values is certainty.
yeah, even though she works at a job that's very uncertain.
Right. But there are aspects of it that are certain.
Yes.
And maybe she's uncomfortable with the part that's uncertain. And she feels like she wants to prevent your kids from feeling that feeling.
See, these values, like the whole value system, like it goes so much deeper. Like
Mhm.
it's all like surface level, but these are the things
But
that
it really goes to
you
the
into your
core of who you are and why you feel the way you feel.
life.
Many of your emotions, much of your fight or flight comes from something that goes against your core values.
Yeah. So is there anything else you feel like we need to add to this, or should we go into the weekly wanderlust?
Let's go into the weekly wanderlust. I think we've kind of gotten there, and it was eye opening for me to realize that so many of the decisions that I've made throughout my life were because of my parents' values, not my values.
Hmm.
Interesting, really interesting.
The weekly wanderlust. You've got to go to our blog because that's where the weekly wanderlust, the link to this quiz questionnaire, the values test that you're going to go and give a try. It's a personal values test, and so go to what is it? Kiss.afirewithin.me to our blog and look up the blog that goes along with this particular podcast. The link is below for that. You'll go over there, then you'll see the link. It'll have an explanation of what you're going to be experiencing, what you're going to be doing. It is so worth it. Make sure that you have a little peace and quiet, that you're not doing it in a rush because it can get exhausting just to sit there and go, well, didn't they just ask me about wealth? Didn't they just compare wealth and freedom? No, it was wealth and travel, or wealth and wisdom. Well,
Yeah,
what does wisdom have to do with wealth? So it's exhausting because it makes you think.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and you really need to get in touch with what resonates with you, what like you really want to feel. Remember when I described the whole I think, yeah, we've talked about it in one of our podcasts, that when something resonates with you, it feels expansive, it feels good. And when
yeah,
something does not feel right, you feel confined, contracted.
yeah,
And so you really want to, as you go through it, feel the energy in your body. Feel yourself go, well, this feels good. Ooh, no, this one, nope, not so much. Because some of them are so close and seem so similar, but they're
yeah.
really not. They're different forms of expression. So does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's like you said, you give yourself some time, some quiet, y- maybe have a glass of wine. I don't know with it.
I'd recommend
That
it.
might help. I don't know. Um,
I've
but
never done that.
when I did it, it was very eye-opening. It's really interesting. And like you said, some of them are so very close that you have to give it some thought, sit with it for a minute,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
then see how you feel.
Yep. Awareness is the first step. And this maybe we'll do another podcast to talk about on this subject, um, about integrating it further. Because the thing is, I mean, like we can only we're giving you little tidbits here.
Yeah.
There's awareness is so much. Trying these, integrating these into your life is so important, and we're hoping that you'll take the moment to do that. Um, but some of this stuff takes more of a rehearsed approach. Like, you've got to, it takes weeks upon weeks. These are habits you've got to form.
Yeah, you have to practice it just like all when we're talking about the flip side. Finding that positive path, that positive thing, it doesn't come naturally to many people. You have to practice it.
Hmm. Exactly. Okay, so everyone knows you got to go over to the blog. The blog has a more concise version of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to listen, or they don't have time to listen, or they want to read and get a more um, refined overview of what, even though we think we're really refined, but a refined overview of what we've talked about. So you can go over to the blog to look that up. Also, anything we've discussed in here, if there's a relatable video, or if there's anything that we've talked about that you can purchase or whatever. Obviously, I'm skipping over the sweary affirmations today, and diving into just wrapping all of this up. So anything that's related to this is on the blog post. Also, you can go over to our Facebook group if you're not a member, and join the Kiss Podcast Facebook group. And that's where we encourage people to share any of the experiences they have from these integrations that we're talking about, or anything that we've mentioned in the video. If you have something to share, please come over and share it.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll be fun to see what people's core values are. And is that a surprise to you? Did anything come out like, I didn't really realize that that was so deeply important to me?
Exactly. And if you are interested in diving in further, and really exploring all of this, I am starting a group experience where we meet on a weekly basis to go over these kinds of concepts, and actively via online Zoom share these concepts and explore even more deeply. Let me know, express your interest. I'm taking a waiting list, or an interest list, I guess I should call it.
Yeah.
And then once there's enough people that are really jazzed about doing this, then we'll start this weekly group that will have more in-depth conversations.
Right.
Make sense? Yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, Happy New Year, everybody. And
Yeah.
if you're watching this at another time of year, Happy
Still
Year.
happy new year. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a whole year to be happy.
This is true.
Right.
Oh, I love
All
that.
right. So we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.